No, no buzz. A Just Bees book club. Today we're talking Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, a novella published, I think, by Tor.com. Yeah, Tor.com in 2020. So I think this is right after Only Good Indians came out. But around the same time, at least. I think that might have been 2019, if I'm not wrong. Um, This is really fun. This is a really fun one. It's funny, or it makes sense. I think this feels kind of like a dry run for My Heart Is a Chainsaw, a book that I quite liked, and I may or may not have talked about on this channel. I think it's probably right before I started doing this. Just Bees Book Club, a book club just for bees. Night of the Mannequins is, let's go full spoilers. Um, the story of a high school senior named Sawyer. He's the point of view character who, um, along with his five friends, a couple of summers ago had a really lovely time with a mannequin they all named Manny. They had a bunch of moments where they posed this mannequin in weird ways that they found in this creek, uh, and then they kind of forgot about him. And this book opens with Sawyer basically saying, like, most of my friends are dead, and I'm the last one surviving, kind of. Or it's just almost all of my friends are dead, I think is the line. And over the course of the narrative, you learn at the beginning. You learn that they were about to they wanted to do one last prank because that one of their friends had to work at a movie theater, and they were gonna bring back Manny for one last prank where they had gotten kicked out of that theater before because like the friend snuck them in. So they were gonna like put the mannequin in, and they like alerted the assistant manager to be like, oh, there's somebody in here who's like not paid. Um, but the mannequin is like sitting in the middle of the house, and they're gonna all have a jolly laugh when the assistant manager goes to check everyone's ticket and realizes, oh no, there's a mannequin here, and then turns out the mannequin gets up and walks, like shows his ticket, and then gets up and walks away. From Sawyer's perspective, uh, this didn't hit me in the same way that the book I recently talked about, Mapping the Interior, did. But it hit me in the way that My Heart Is a Chainsaw did, which is like it's a really effective horror novel that gets at some weird stuff, and that this one, or maybe even better, is The Babysitter Lives. Like um, the tight first person here uh, gives you the tools to understand that, like, uh, that's fun. Um, that what the person who's narrating is saying is off, but you can never quite tell exactly how off it is. And that's the joy of this book to me, because, the reason I say full spoilers is because Sawyer goes on to basically go on and murder all of his friends with I read this just a few days ago, but I even in the reading I couldn't quite remember exactly what it is, but it's like some sort of glow in the dark, like, belt for a motorcycle or a chainsaw or something like that. That it's a weird glow in the dark piece of string, kind of, is as it describes. I don't know if it's a belt exactly, but like, um, he basically murders all of his friends in order to stop this mannequin who has, gained sentience, and has been stealing all the Miracle Grow from the backyards of this very affluent neighborhood that he lives in, from like not just killing his friends, but killing their whole families. And there's like a whole obsession with like being bad at math, but making mathematical conclusions based on the number of people who would die versus the number of people he might kill. There's a bunch of fun, good, fucked up character moments in this. He at some point decides like, oh, you know what? The best way to hide my identity would be is to buy a mannequin mask. Um, it ends in a very my heart is a chainsaw kind of way. There's a lake involved, as it were. Um, and I don't know. I think this is a very fun read if you are interested in the broad genre of slasher stuff. Um, Sort of like My Heart is a Chainsaw. It's a very scream-y version of slasher movies. Um, and I think I think I should like linger on saying for a second, right? Um, it is not easy or even viable, I would honestly say most of the time, to try to write into a novel what the Scream movies did for the slasher genre, much less just slasher fiction in general. Um, the form doesn't work in the same way in almost any case I've read. Um, I am not a big horror fiction person, generally speaking, especially not like a slasher horror kind of person. Um, Jones is like maybe the only writer who I can think of off the top of my head, which is not to say that that means a lot because the top of my head is often particularly empty. Um, but like I think he's the only person who can do this particular genre in the literary form that like fucking works for me. And it's, having read Mapping the Interior so recently and then this uh, Night of the Mannequins, I I just find it extremely impressive to be able to do things like those two, like hard the babysitter lives, sorry, like My Heart is a Chainsaw, like Only Good Indians, where he can kind of work in the same structure and flip registers around in really interesting ways. um I will say I think the thing that works least for me is the voice. It's a very voicey novel, as they might say over at Just King Things. Like what's uh so my cover was in place. My alibi was streaming in my bedroom, which I wasn't in. The next part hurt like you wouldn't believe. Chipped an actual piece off my soul, I'm pretty sure. Then made me swallow it, but it was for the best. Thing was, not like this is news, but Tim, in addition to his big sister, just got off to college. He had two little brothers, right? Not to mention a mom and dad who were mostly not terrible, who should have grounded him for making them come collect him at the movie theater on their date night. Like all of our families, though, there were potential collateral damage. Innocent parties Manny would crush when he reached down to their roof for the kid he used to play with, the kid who used to love him. Um, it's very written in, yes, the voice of a high school senior, which I think is accurate. And it sort of sometimes reaches toward, I want to say, like trying to use that voice as synecdoche or something like that. Like this is like the prototypical high school senior voice or something like that of I guess probably when this is written, like late 2019. Um, and I think it just doesn't work sometimes. I had to. This is a thing I extremely extremely rarely do. I read the first 2.5 chapters of this, basically, like the first 25-30 pages maybe, which is like a significant chunk of this 130-page book. And then I had to, the next day, just like go back and reread them because reading them the first time got me to an understanding of what this character or who this character is, what's happening in this narrative, but I couldn't understand the voice really. Like it kept um, like the friction was just a little too much because I didn't really believe this person was talking this way. But then once I sort of twigged on to what was happening, rereading that, I was like, okay, 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 okay. This is who this character is. This is why he talks this way. And then continuing on, I was like, okay, I get it. I think I understand like the broader structure of this novel, or like what is potentially going to happen versus what is probably going to happen versus what could potentially happen. I'll just say, yeah, the voice, the voice, the voice produced some friction for me the first time around. But and by the first round, I mean the first 20-ish pages. Um, which I don't think is like a condemnatory thing. I think that's not. In fact, that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. Because why would you read if not to at some point encounter a thing that you don't quite understand, or that you don't quite it doesn't come to you naturally, that you then can proceed to understand through the reading of the thing. I genuinely don't. I genuinely don't know why you would engage with words in the way that I love to do if you aren't willing to do that. But yeah, I think that's everything. So hey, thanks for not watching.